I was spending more time looking out of my driver's side window than I was at the road.
That's not good.
And then I looked in the blue beam and I seen something like a teardrop in it. And I looked, as I got a little bit closer and looked harder, I noticed it was a cow and it was whipping its head side to side. It was about 30 feet up in the air. And I thought, at that point, oh man, it's time to get out of here. I'm going to be next.
Oh, wow. So they were actually grabbing cattle, probably, to do some experimenting. I'm going to ask you a favor, Ronnie. I want you to hang up and call right back, because we're getting a lot of lines static really bad. And it wasn't there when we talked earlier tonight.
Okay.
So why don't you disconnect and call me right back, and hopefully that cures the problem.
Okay, we'll try.
Yeah, I mean, if I was out driving and all of a sudden, I look out my window and I see cattle going up in the sky, unless there was a... Okay, Ronnie, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, that is a lot louder.
Oh, great.
Blame it on. I don't know if you're using Skype, but I find sometimes you get really good conversations on Skype, and then sometimes it sounds like you're talking all around the world with a string and two cans.
Right. Yeah, I've had some problems with it myself.
So you were in your truck, and you just happened to turn your head, and you saw this cow going up in the sky, or was it coming down from the sky?
It was definitely taking it up out of the field to the three lights that were in the air. And there was something standing in the field that had a yellowish-green glow around it, and it had a big bobblehead on it. And, at this point, it was a lonely road, and normally it was a busy highway, but I noticed there wasn't another car inside, and it crossed my mind to stop the truck and start digging around there and see if I could find a camera to get a picture. But after seeing that, I was like, now at this point, I just want to leave the area. I don't want to be next.
Well, yeah, you never know. I mean, they find these cattle sometimes totally mutilated. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to be somewhere all of a sudden where, you stop and you want to look at it, maybe get a picture, and all of a sudden you're gone.
Right. But I don't know if they took it, if they killed it, or if they just did something to it and replaced it and put it back. I have no idea what happened. I know here not too long ago, the Japanese TV contacted me, and they wanted to do a reenactment of my sighting, and they spent about a day and a half over here, and we went down to the area where the cow was taken and stuff, and did some recording and stuff, and they put it was on a segment of caught on camera on Japanese TV. So. Oh wow.
So, boy, they spent a day and a half when you had to react. Boy, I mean, that would be really interesting. I mean, do you have a feeling that was done by a UFO or our government? Or did you see any signs or hear any signs of a helicopter or anything like that?
No, there wasn't a sound. There wasn't a sound at all. And the array of lights that stretched across the highway was massive. I mean, it was huge, and I think at one point I could see the lights, and then all of a sudden I couldn't see the lights, and I think I actually drove underneath the thing. But all you could see was the lights coming out of it that were huge, humongous. I mean, they were huge openings with light. They weren't like spotlights beaming out. It was like illumination inside a portal window is a better way to describe it. And I think I drove underneath the thing. I just couldn't see them anymore. It wasn't like they moved or took off or nothing like that. They were visible, then the next thing I know, they weren't visible except for the three that had broke off and left from the big array of lights, and it was sucking a cow up out of a field.
Boy, and how long did you see that all transpire? Was it like a matter of seconds, or was it minutes, or something?
I never stopped rolling down the highway, so I would say as I was going by, I got to see this for a minute or two before I was out of far enough away from it that I couldn't see it. And it probably happened maybe an eighth of a mile to a quarter mile out in the field. It was close enough that I could see what was going on, and the field had some trees, but not a lot of them. So I got a really good look at it. I filled out a MUFON report, but I was kind of scared because I'm a hazmat driver and I'm trying to protect my anonymity and so I edited the crap out of my MUFON. I get confronted a lot. Well, your MUFON sighting didn't say all that. It's because there for a long time I was afraid to say anything for fear I'd lose my job. Nobody wants to hire somebody that hazmat material that sees UFOs and aliens and cows being abducted. So I was very discreet in making my MUFON reports for a lot of my sightings, and that's the reason behind it.
Well, that's what happens, like with the pilots, fly these big jumbo planes, with passengers or even military ones. If they report that they saw a UFO, their career is pretty much gone. I mean, that's what's so bad. I had a friend years ago, back around the late 80s. I don't know if you remember an airline called Republic Airlines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the vice presidents. I don't remember what division he was a vice president in. But during the war, in Vietnam, he used to fly a B-52 over and drop the bombs over in North Vietnam. He told me his first encounter was coming back from dropping bombs on the way back to Guam, and there off to his wing was a UFO. He said he made the biggest mistake in his military career. He reported it in on the radio. And when he got back to the base, he landed. Next thing to meet him, he was put into interrogation room. Every member of the plane was put in a different room. And here's all these guys basically in suits questioning them. And basically was telling him, if you ever say anything about it, your military career was over. In fact, he said that his career was over because after that he got passed up on promotions. So he left the Air Force.
Oh yeah, it's great now that we've got to the point where we can actually talk about what we're seeing out there, and and man, I had no idea how intense this was going to get. When I seen the cow getting abducted, I thought I'll never see anything like that again in my life. And I was like amazed at what I seen. Of course, it's hard to get anybody to believe me when you say something like that. But,
well, yeah, I mean, years ago, if I wouldn't have had my little sighting, which I classify as little, but you know what? If you go around and tell people, oh, I saw a UFO or I saw a Bigfoot or I saw a ghost, right? People look at you strange. Now, you are a truck driver. You handle, stuff that, I think you probably have to have a special permit, or I'm not sure. I know some states you do. But, I mean, if they think you're a little off, you're not going to be doing your job anymore.
Oh, yeah, we get drug testing, mentally evaluated, and we have to pass the same kind of physical that airline pilots pass. And, in fact, a lot of times when I'm taking my test, airline pilots are in there taking their tests, so I go through the same kind of scrutiny that they do to be a hazmat driver.
Oh, wow. So, what other things have you seen that has been strange when it comes to UFOs?
Well, there was one point when I was seeing more lights. I was actually seeing some craft, and I saw one craft. It was late in the late afternoon. This thing was black and fuzzy, and I thought it was some smoke over a rural farmhouse.
Uh-huh.
And as I got closer to the farmhouse, I was thinking about calling the fire department because I thought something might be on fire because nobody lives in this place. It's like a vacation home. So I'm out in the woods, and I was coming back from my leaves, and I'm looking off to the left at this house, and I see this big black, looks like a cloud of smoke over the top of it. And as I'm getting closer and trying to determine if something's on fire or not, all of a sudden these big white bluish lights come on throughout the middle of it, and then it starts moving off. And I knew instantly that it was a UFO. And at this point, I had a camera, and it was in the late afternoon, but it was still daylight. And I know my batteries were good in that camera, and I hit the power button, and the lens extended, and then the thing just froze up. I mean, I got black screen, and to this day, you could put new batteries in it or whatever, and nothing. That thing it would not load for me. So I basically chased this thing in my truck, and I watched it leave, and then all of a sudden it just went from where you could see it to you couldn't see it. I don't know if it took off or if it just vanished. I mean, the sky got real fuzzy, like heat rising off a desert highway, and then the next thing you know, it's some kind of stealth, I believe, and you just couldn't see it anymore.
Well, how did you emotionally feel when you saw those things happen? You know, like you look out. I mean, to me, if I looked out of my car window or on my motorcycle for even, if I took a look and all of a sudden I see a cow going up, like maybe in a spaceship or somewhere, and you didn't see any ropes or anything, I take it, right? You just saw the cow going up in the air, right?
Yeah, it was. There was nothing tied to the cow, or I think I would have been able to see it. It was just being lifted by some means, and it wasn't a pleasant ride for the cow. It was whipping its head side to side. I could see it whipping its head side to side there as it was being lifted. It was about 30 feet up in the air and continuing to rise. And it wasn't a helicopter or anything like that. And whatever was on the ground down there, it was very skinny and had a huge head on it. And I couldn't really see any defined characteristics of it, but just by looking at the body of it, it looked like your typical alien, like your gray alien.
Well, how did you feel emotionally, Ronnie? I mean, you saw something that is like once in a lifetime time experience. I mean, you got to probably see an alien. You got to see, abduction of a cow for mutilation or whatever how you pronounce it. You're seeing this, right? I mean, how did you feel inside? Were you nervous, upset, scared, confused?
Well, it was a big wake up call because so many nights I go out there and I just quit looking. I don't look at the sky. I don't pay any attention to what's going on. But after seeing this stuff, it made me start becoming more aware of what's going on around me up in the sky, and like I said, it was, you couldn't go out there without seeing something odd. And I don't know if it was because for the first time in years I was actually looking, or if there was just so much activity in that area that you couldn't help but see it. And then I realized that it seemed like no matter where I was at, I would see something, because we don't go to the same area. I mean, I travel around 3 or 4 different counties, and and it was like I kept seeing a UFO. I kept seeing a UFO craft, and then I would, the next week I would go to an area and see another one, in a different area. And I'm like, is there that many of them, or are they somehow finding me and trying to show themselves to me, or am I just getting lucky, or what's the deal, And I talked to a good friend of mine named Alan Osterseal, and I said, hey, man, I said, I've seen 2 UFO craft in 7 days. I said, I'm off tomorrow. I said, would you be willing to go UFO watching with me? And he kind of looked at me strange, but he, like I said, he's like, sure, man. He's like, well, his house is up on a hill, and it's really dark up there. It's a great place to sky watch. And he said, we could go right here in my backyard if you want. I said, yeah, that'd be great. And I just gotten this 250 milliwatt green laser in, and it's a powerful thing. I mean, it shoots a green beam for a mile or 2. It's a little more powerful than you'd want to use in a classroom. And I had this laser, and I'm like, okay. And I brought the camera, and I said, okay, look, now what I want to do is, if we see the UFO, I said, I want you to take the camera, and I want you to videotape me shooting this laser at this thing, because I want to see if the propulsion system of this thing causes the laser beam to deviate. If it's been in space and time, I'm thinking that I might be able to record this laser beam deviating, and then I can present that to the skeptics and the scholars who are going to just say that I'm taking pictures of street lamps in the dark. And that was the whole plan that we had, was for all this to go down like that. So we go out there in this backyard, and we're sitting there, and I can hear military jets flying around the area, and I'm like, we are not going to see anything with these jets flying around. And we wasn't, we could see the jets flying around, and then finally, we were about ready to give up, but then finally the jets left the area, and I was like, well, we'll give it a little while now. We might see if we see anything, because I've been seeing so many craft, and so we probably waited another 15 minutes or so, and then all of a sudden we hadn't seen anything, and then all of a sudden Alan said, look, and I looked up, and there was like 4 lights had just came on, and they were probably a few hundred yards from us, and one of this thing was big, And I thought, man, this is exactly what I've been seeing. It was a 4 light craft.